So, hi everybody. I'm Ron Bass, and this afternoon it's my pleasure and delight to be talking to Jawad Mir, the co-director of this remarkable festival documentary that you've just seen, Citizen of Moria. And with us all the way from Athens, Greece, Ahmad Ebrahimi, who is worked on, or is co-director of the film and kind of the star of the film as well. So
Yes.
thank you, gentlemen, for both being here. We've had a long chat waiting to go on the air here, and it's been fascinating, Ahmad, particularly talking to you. But
Thank
Jawad,
you very much.
Thank
oh,
you.
listen, it's great to have you here. Jawad, of course, has uh, been at the Milton Film Festival before. In fact, we had the pleasure of having his Only 78 here a few years ago, and it premiered at the Milton Film Festival. Now, Jawad says that story comes first in his films. I would suggest that along with story is conflict, which of course is part of any story. Uh, but his films involve real people fighting to overcome impossible odds. Uh, uh, the citizens of a tiny Cape Breton fishing village, for instance, fighting to get a seawall made, coffee baristas trying to become world champion baristas. His latest documentary, a woman working to find her sister imprisoned among a million Uyghurs in Chinese concentration camps. But I don't think anything when it comes to conflict quite comes up to Citizen of Moria. How does one guy, all alone and with no resources, get himself out of the world's largest and most brutal refugee camp when everyone there is trying to accomplish the same thing? Impossible, but not for Ahmed. So, Ahmed, so glad you're here. Uh, 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 all the way from Athens. By the looks
Thank
of
you very
it,
much.
you could be next door. Um,
Yes.
the question I have after seeing the film and your remarkable journey, and I'm sure everyone watching probably has the same question, is how are you? You're in Athens. It's kind of left up in the air at the end of the film, just how you're going to get to Canada. I gather you have still yet to get to Canada. Can you tell us
Uh,
what's happened and what your situation is?
uh, yes, I'm still here in Athens and living here, working, and but for Canada, it's a bit difficult situation because Madame Laurie is still she's trying to find a way, but we are not quite sure yet if it's gonna happen or not.
How are you feeling at this point about Canada and about getting here? Is this still something that you want?
Actually, yes, I really want if I can because I think uh, the life will be a bit more comfortable there, and also I can improve much more than here, and also maybe I can see my family faster than here. This is very important for me. If I think if I can get there, I can see my family much faster than here because here the situation is a kind of that government says that you can bring your family, but there is not a real way to. It's just on the paper, and you cannot find a way to do that. It's like just on the paper, and there is no way actually.
Jawad, are you as surprised as I am that it's been this difficult to get Ahmed into the country?
Yeah, actually, I am because you know, you Ahmed's story aside, he has so much skill set,
Yeah, yeah,
and then the language, he speaks English amazingly well, and as you saw in the film, that he met all the requirements that we're
yeah.
supposed to. So I don't know why is there such a long delay in our immigration system. where just, trying to get one person over, and it's not like Ahmad has any kind of bad history or anything. He's a straightforward, simple guy. It is surprising. It is, but then again, one of the things I always sort of wonder is that, from a standpoint of the government, is that, okay, from their standpoint, it's just one person, right? Like what does Ahmad mean to them? But having said that, that's what this film's attempt to do, is that people need to see refugees not as refugees, not as migrants, not as 75th number refugee. They need to see them as people. And I'm sure if people were to see this film, or whoever the decision makers are, they would change their mind, because Ahmad it's not because we made a film on Ahmad. Yeah, we did, but Ahmad is such an amazing person, and he's such an interesting character. He's a positive person. So if people start seeing refugees, for the lack of a better word, as people, by their first names, by their skill sets and their abilities, I think decision making becomes very, very easy, and I hope that does happen for Ahmad and for thousands and millions others.
Of course, and just watching going into watching Citizen, I'm thinking, well, this is a welcoming country. I mean, we tend to think of Canada as open and without a lot of the prejudices and difficulties of other countries about letting people in. But you come away from this documentary thinking just the opposite, that in fact it is very difficult to get into this country. I mean, is that your assessment as well, Jawad?
I like to be positive about things. I mean, I'm sure there are other stories which were able to, but I based on, because I know Ahmed firsthand, and even like this morning, I asked him for an update, like what's going on with your situation. I check on him, and he sort of checks on me. Like we kind of chat here and there. Nothing has changed. Like it's been, since he left Moria, it's been over almost a year. And
I was going to say, yes, how long is it?
Right, it was in February last year, and he's still in Athens, and nothing has, like, it's one thing to be in Athens, but there's something happening. Forget about Canada, but there's nothing happening for him within Athens. Like he's there by status quo, right? So it is disappointing, and I hope Ahmad and people like Ahmad who have the skill set, it's not like they're coming here to to party and whatnot. They have something to offer.
And he's a family man who wants to see his family and bring his family together. I mean,
that's the bigger thing, right? So
exactly. Now, are you in touch with your family, Ahmed? What's the situation there?
I'm talking with them almost every day, actually, and this, as they are living with my family, with my parents. For financially, they are good, but mentally, like my daughters, my wife, and I think they are not in a really, really good situation, because like it's difficult. It's have been more than 4 years now, and complaining, it's a bit difficult.
God, yes, 4 years. And you're leaving Afghanistan. Has that been a problem for them continuing to live there? Are the authorities making life difficult, or the Taliban?
As I asked Jawad to don't show their, we didn't show actually their faces in the movie, and but still life is very dangerous in Afghanistan. Like every day, like in the way that my daughter are going to school, it's terrorist attacks. If my wife, if she goes to visit her family in the village, like Taliban's every day killing people in that area, and it's quite dangerous and difficult there. Anytime I hear something about Afghanistan situation or some terrorist attacks, almost I get heart attack, and I'm just checking about my family if they're okay or not. It's the situation is like that.
And how are you in Athens? Are you comfortable there? Are you able to make any kind of income? I mean, what keeps you going there?
Yes, I'm working with street team works now in these days, and helping refugees who are living in the street and who needs help. And the life here is for them, like I'm one of them actually, but it's very difficult because I found my way to find a job, and I know a little bit languages, and I can manage myself. But other people, it's very difficult for them. They need everything, like from diapers to milk to accommodation to everything, and there is nothing to offer for them, even if there is no social services here. There is nothing actually. In these days, the camps are very, like, as the weather is very cold, and people are living in the summer tent in the camps, and as they change the Moria places in close to the water, everything is very heartbreaking here.
Yes. We have a comment from an audience member, Anne-Marie Ford. Very informative film, she says. I got chills at times watching it, and I think we all did. I speaking of defeating the odds, for a filmmaker from Canada to somehow get involved with a filmmaker from Afghanistan, Jawad, maybe you could tell us a bit about how it was that the two of you managed to come together, which I'm sure in itself is quite an amazing story.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of backstory. Ever since the whole Syria war broke out, I've been really meaning to tell a story of not necessarily Syrians, but just in general of what's happening with the, the refugee crisis, and then in Greece as well. And I tried many ways to nonprofit organizations and stuff, and there was just so much bureaucracy, it just never worked out, and I kind of left it at that. And then there was a story of this gentleman who became very popular on Twitter, Hassan al-Kontar. He was a Syrian refugee that got stuck on Malaysia or Indonesia airport for 6 months. And he was
right.
So I contacted him, and he said, talk to this woman named Laurie Cooper. She will, she's the person that I'm in contact with. So I spoke to Laurie, and that didn't work out. But then Laurie mentioned Ahmad to me. And she mentioned Moria, and I Googled Moria, and I was just baffled that this is Europe. Like when you envision Europe or the West, you think about, you don't think what you see in that film. And she introduced me to Ahmad, and Ahmad and I started chatting on WhatsApp for about a few months. And then we met, and, the rest is basically the film. And I know I've said this, and I say it in every interview, in every discussion. Ahmad people need to be understood in this world, and Ahmad is one of the many that are completely misunderstood. The film offers that discussion about refugees messing up our country, whatnot, but there is a backstory to that. Okay, why was there a refugee influx? Was it because the West invaded those countries? And you just keep backtracking these, to a history of 50, 60, 70 years ago, and until we resolve those root problems, this is going to go on forever, and it's never going to stop. And incidentally, one last point now with the whole COVID thing, when COVID broke out and everybody started fighting over toilet papers, which I still don't know why, I was I was reminded of how a lot of the people who viewed refugees as animals, not everybody, but those who did, are pretty much acting exactly like the way they accuse, because survival is everything. And I think you and I, anybody, if we're put in a situation where it's really, really hard to deal with, we will act in whatever means possible to provide for our family and to keep our family protected. And I think that's what we need to understand, that these people are not just cheating the system. They're surviving because of their backstory and the hellhole they have in their homes, which were invaded by the West in the first place.
So that was going to be my next question. Is there an answer to all of this? Is there a way to solve this crisis? And I mean, you've touched on that a little bit. And Ahmed, from your point of view, what do you see? What do you see as a way of I don't know whether it's ever possible to get past it, but to somehow reach some sort of conclusion with this.
To get rid of all this situation and solve it.
Yeah.
I I don't think so. It's quite difficult because like everybody is thinking in different way, and you cannot change everybody. It is like you should change the whole generation, and it needs, I think, much more time to solve all these problems. Like for our country, it's quite simple because we are uneducated and we are still following the stupid leaders that they fucked up our life, and we just need education, I think. And also, like, I was thinking that to send a message to European Parliament or something to stop paying our government, because they are just corruptions, and in this 20 years nothing happened to our country. We still don't have electricity there. Talibans are still there and they are still killing people. And why you're paying this government, this bullshit government? And like I heard something that the money that they give to Afghanistan in 20 years is much more than money that they rebuilt whole Europe after World War II. And it is, and I don't know why they are still doing this, or why this problem is not solved ever. Like, I think the whole generation should be changed.
and I will add to that. I mean, if you ever look up Afghanistan in the 1960s and 70s, there's black and white photographs or women walking in skirt and, you know, education. Yeah. Like it was a very, very different country. And I'm not blaming everything on the West. I mean, yes, there is problem with Taliban and everything. It's a twofold problem, right? Like Taliban messed up the country, and then the West came, and that just, you know, it's been 20 years since America invaded Afghanistan. What has happened? You know, what's improved? If anything, it's gotten worse, and generations of people, you know, their lives are messed. And one of the things that I learned while I was in Moria, we were talking to one family, which isn't in the film. We had to take it out. This family, Ahmad, you probably remember that Pakistani family when we were filming with Laurie. They went from Burma to Pakistan to India to Nepal to Afghanistan to Iran and then to Greece in 6 years.
Good grief.
On foot. Right? So this is like a very huge, and there is no quick solution to it. Like Ahmed said, I think this generation is pretty much done with it, I think, but we need to start thinking about the next 15, 20 years if we want to make it better. And it starts small, but if everybody starts doing their part properly and with honesty, it can be taken care
of. We've got a comment again from an audience member. This is from Zena Metri. Thank you for making this film to shed some light on the real struggles the refugees go through, people who are just in search of a better, peaceful life for themselves and their families. So obviously we have viewers who are very sympathetic, but it is frustrating. It's very frustrating to watch the film. It just seems like such an endless problem, and I'm sure you felt, Jawad, you probably felt that way making the film.
Yeah, you know, I told this to Ahmed when I first went into Moria. What really shattered me was not Ahmed, not the camp, anything else, was the fact that these little kids, you know, from ages 2 to 10, were playing as if they're playing in a park, happy, without shoes, in small boxes. They're just, completely clueless, or they've adapted. And seeing that if they're happy, and why are they happy in this situation, just completely, shattered me. And that kind of just got stuck with me. And I think every time we were working on this, that was just on the back of my mind, that, how are these kids dealing with? I mean, here we have, in the West, we have, you know, us mature grown-ups, we have, first world problems with phones and Twitter going down and stuff, and you, you look at these families and what they go through. And most of these families come from a really, really well lifestyle, like from Syria, from other places. And because what happened in Syria, they've lost their homes, and they don't have anything. They don't have anything to do with. So empathy is very important, and I think we need to do that, because it can happen to any one of us at any given point in life. Who would have thought we would be locked down? Like, did anybody ever imagine that the world would be locked down? So anything is possible, and we just need to understand that before it gets to us, we need to resolve it for others.
But what would you do? And this question for the two of you. Let more refugees in? Are we being too restrictive about taking care of people who have escaped these countries?
Emma, do you want to answer that first, or do you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead.
I think in the film it argues that, right, that I'm not saying that every single refugee is perfect. There are some people who try to scam the system, but that's a very small percentage of it. It's a very small percentage. But I think if we do the vetting properly, we can get the right people in. I mean, we live in 21st century. There is enough technology, enough information for anyone, to find out about anyone, what they think, how they feel, what their viewpoints are, and what history they have. And majority of the people, and I'm not just saying this for the sake of saying it, is that majority of the people in the world, whether they're refugee or people in Canada or United States, are very peaceful and calm and loving people. It's just that we always hear about the bad ones more than we hear about the good ones. So I do think it's possible, and I think the Canadian government and other governments need to start embracing refugees, because in the end, you're actually benefiting your own country by inviting people with skill sets like Ahmad and others.
We have another comment, not a question, but a comment again from Tracy Morgan. What Ahmad said about us being from the same place was beautiful. We are all earthlings, which is very hard to argue with, but we sometimes forget that. So, and Jawad, somebody is, Kathy is asking what you're going to do next, as far as films are concerned.
With Citizen of Moria, or in general for like next project?
Well, good question about Moria. Are you planning to follow that up in any way? I mean, I can't believe that this film wouldn't help Ahmad get into the country, for instance.
And that's the goal. I mean, aside from highlighting the entire issue, I do hope, if there's one thing this film can achieve besides anything else, is that Ahmad gets into Canada and is reunited with his family. I mean, if that happens, I think the film has achieved its purpose more than anything else. But at the same time, right now, there's a Moria 2.0 now, which is right by the water. And, it's disastrous situations, even worse than the original one. So we have actually we've screened this in few places, through some MPs in European Parliament to create awareness in Belgium, in Denmark, and we're hoping that it reaches out to more people, especially the powers that be. If they can change their mind about this whole refugee situation. But for me personally, the whole issue is important, but getting Ahmad to where he wants to be is far more superior than anything else.
Yeah, thank you, Jawad. I just wanted to add something. Like when we start making this movie, like Jawad and me, the point wasn't that I get to Canada. The point was that we were trying to highlight some situation that no one knows about it, And when we were talking with somebody that they don't know anything about the situation and what's going in Europe, and they didn't know about the Moria, we decided to do this. We decided to highlight this situation. I think that Jawad also, he didn't know about Moria before he
No,
met Madame Lori. Like,
Was that
it,
right? Yeah.
I had
yeah,
no clue, and I think it started off with what Ahmed said is about creating awareness for sure, and it still
yeah,
is, but it's become. I think Ahmed
yeah,
and I have spent so much time together off on WhatsApp
yeah,
in person that it's kind of become a little bit of a personal thing too.
yeah, yeah. If we can do that, like if this film makes help me that I can get to Canada, it would be great. But from the other side, it was just to show people what's going on here, and it's and everybody needs help, and
And,
yeah,
and and I will add to that. I think everybody in this world, if they spent 5 minutes in any refugee camp in the world, literally 5 minutes, your viewpoint of the life and perspective about your own life and about refugees is going to flip upside down. That's all it takes.
Oh, I, I think, as we can see from some of the comments here tonight, all it takes is looking at your film. It's eye-opening and traumatic to sit through it, but hopeful as well, thanks to Ahmed's story. So it's, but another question. Uh, how easy is it to make a film like this, Jawad, these days? How easy is it to get the financing uh, to make a film like this?
Right. So after we made Almost 28, it became a little bit more, I wouldn't say easier, but tiny bit easier to get people involved and investors and whatnot, and finance it. And and it's no matter where you are in your career, I think it's always difficult to convince people until they see something. So I do hope that we've done justice to the story, and Ahmed and I have always had the discussion is that I really did not want to make a film, and I think Ahmed as well was, which is like we didn't want the refugees to be feel people to feel sorry for the refugees. That's very important. We wanted to humanize them, but at the same time we wanted to highlight what the locals in Mytilene were going through and their point of view. Right or wrong, that's a different story altogether. Um, but yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Listen, thank you both very much. It's a tremendous film, and as I can see from the audience response, it's a moving experience to sit through it. Uh, Ahmed, thank you so much for coming to us from all the way from Athens this afternoon and speaking so eloquently about your life and the film. And Jawad, always a pleasure to talk to you.
Like,
Just before we go, um, uh, somebody else was asking me earlier, and I thought it might be on the questions, but wanted to know a little bit more about you and what got you into documentary filmmaking in the first place.
myself.
Yes, you
Okay.
always.
Me. um, I think we talked about this
You
before.
did, yes.
Only 78 was that I had never ever thought that I would be making documentaries, because my approach always has been to want to make narrative films.
Right.
But I think with that story of that village, somehow it struck a chord, and I really feel that this is something that I'm glad that I've discovered that, because with documentaries nowadays, you are able to tell those narrative stories, as you saw in Citizen of Moria. I mean, literally the entire film is through the eyes of Ahmed, right?
Yes.
I'm so glad that I'm able to tell stories like that, because we need people in the world, to writers or filmmakers or musicians, to tell stories, to create awareness about such atrocities that are going on in the world.
Do you now? I think the two films of yours that I've seen you probably couldn't have done as a narrative film. Or it wouldn't have been nearly as powerful, put it that way. And certainly Citizen of Moria wouldn't have been nearly as powerful. But do you still harbor ambitions to make a narrative film?
Yes, most certainly, in due time. In due time.
So as does Ahmad. So maybe this is your next collaboration. He's working on a screenplay.
Yeah, I talk to him about it all the time. I'm like, Ahmad, what are you working on? So who knows? Maybe I would love for him, you know, if he comes to Canada. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, if like it's a small world and we can cooperate here, you can come to Greece and
yeah, that's
much easier for you. Yes.
If this crazy time, if any of us can ever travel again anytime soon, I do hope the two of you get together. And if you do make another film together, please bring it to the Milton Film Festival. I'm not sure, we were joking earlier with Ahmed about the fact that he may not know where Milton, Ontario, Canada is, but definitely want you to come to the Milton Film Festival. So listen, thank you both again.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your time and coming here to the festival again this year. So take care, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.